Kevin, back with your story of the night. A blockbuster trade. The Knicks are sending Kristaps Porzingis to the Mavericks in a 7-player deal, joining Porzingis, Courtney Lee, Trey Burke, and Tim Hardaway Jr. The Knicks will receive Dennis Smith Jr., Wes Matthews, DeAndre Jordan, and according to Woj and Ian Begley, they will get 2 future first-round picks, the 2021 first-rounder, which is unprotected, and 2023, which is protected 1 through 10. Sage has much more.
Let's welcome in NBA analyst Tim Legler. And Tim, this is fascinating from the moment this news broke, because you can look at these two franchises and say, okay, New York, what's going on? What do you do? And Dallas, we see what you're trying to do. Go. What's your take?
Well, for the Knicks, they're starting over. I mean, they get a guy in Kristaps Porzingis who they thought could have turned into a star. They wanted him to be the face of the franchise at one point. After the injury, he comes in, he says, hey, look, I don't like the direction of this. I want out. So now they make a pretty quick move, and so they go into complete rebuild mode. They're now going to focus around a point guard in Dennis Smith, who I hope they can finally get a chance in this league to just get the ball and go, because I think he could be an electrifying open court player. The big key is $70 million in cap space. This is a franchise that believes they can go out and make a serious run at 2 max players this summer. But right now, all they have is Dennis Smith and a whole lot of money. So we'll see how that plays out. There's going to be other teams in the same market for the guys they're going after. I don't know about the Knicks' ability to lure those guys to New York and rebuild with Dennis Smith, but at least it's a new lease on life for him. And I do think it's an environment there now where he can just play these last 30 games.
And the Dallas Mavericks right now, Tim, fascinating as well. They're 12th in the West, 4.5 games out of a playoff spot. It's been a long time since they've had consistent success, 7-8 years. What does this do for them right away, assuming Kristaps can get healthy quickly?
Well, I think what it came down to was, look, Dennis Smith didn't have a use for them because Luka Doncic is your playmaker. So you want to go get a star at another position. You're going to have a chance to do that with Kristaps Porzingis. And in the international flair, I think is going to help them potentially re-sign him to a long-term deal this summer. He's got to come back and be healthy, but there's no doubt he's got the talent to be a star in this league. You pair him with Doncic. Now this organization feels like they could have 2 young stars, and we know that's what it's going to take at minimum in this league to compete. So for me, the Dallas Mavericks absolutely got the best of this deal because Dennis Smith was really expendable to them, and you get back a star in return, and Tim Hardaway, a guy that can really fill it up on the wing.
And with Dennis Smith Jr., what he did last year, almost Rookie of the Year, falling a little bit. We'll see what he can do now with a little bit of fresh start. Tim Legler, thanks for your take on the big trade. Seasons are very similar to his new teammate Dirk Nowitzki. If the trade goes through, and again we said it is official, both were averaging over 17 points per game in their first 3 years in the league. Porzingis made his first All-Star trip in his 3rd year, while Dirk made his first trip in his 4th season. So obviously the Dallas Mavericks are trying to get back on track, get back to the postseason, get back to their winning ways. It's been 7-8 years since they won the NBA championship. And the Knicks, it's a little bit of a different story here as we bring in Michael Wilbon live from Los Angeles. Michael, we had Stephen A. Smith on just a couple of minutes ago. He says, hey, Porzingis wanted out, get him out. This will now attract other free agents, maybe Kyrie, maybe Kevin Durant. You say what?
Sage, how many years of maybes is this going to be with the Knicks? I was smiling when I heard Stephen A. talking about that. I'm going to text him in a couple of minutes. Look, in 2010, the Knicks thought they were getting somebody, right? And it was a big summer. LeBron James and Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh and on and on and on. Who did the Knicks get? They wound up with Amari Stoudemire, who played very well for them for a couple of years, but people knew that Amari wasn't going to be a guy who was going to be able to be great, a first-team All-NBA player for 5 years or more. And so here we are again, another big summer coming up in free agency. And, yes, the Knicks will presume that they're right there on the front burner thoughts of Kevin Durant and others, and maybe there will be. Living in Washington, in the East, you hear Kevin Durant, and he must be interested in the Knicks. I'm going to slow that down a little bit. I want to see, why would Kevin Durant, Sage, necessarily leave one of the best organizations in professional sports in America and probably the best in the NBA to go to a place, and I understand that Scott Perry and those guys are trying to get it turned around, but it has been, historically, the last 15 years, the worst organization or one of them in the NBA. Why is it that Kevin Durant will go from one to the other? We're going to have to see. I'm going to have to get more than excited feelings out of New York about the free agents that could come to New York at Madison Square Garden.
Okay, so you don't like this trade. What should the Knicks have done when their franchise says, I want out. What should they have done?
Sage, I'm not saying I don't like the trade. I understand it. And Porzingis, I mean, he doesn't have the stature. He may have the stature. He didn't have the results to demand much of anything. So I understand exactly why the Knicks did this, but it's a two-part equation. I'm not presuming, like a lot of other people are, that the Knicks automatically are at the front of the line for a top-tier free agents. And there are a lot of guys out there. Boogie Cousins, I mean, he's not probably going to be with Golden State. Maybe New York interests him. So there are a lot of maybes. But the Knicks' recent history has said that's all it is now.
Real quick, what does this do for the Dallas Mavericks, who have had a couple of down years and certainly not very impressive since they won the title against the Heat in 2011?
Well, I guess there's some risk. I mean, we haven't seen Porzingis. Have we seen any video of him running on the beach full speed or any of that stuff? We saw that a few months ago. But look, before you can get the three superstars that people feel are requisite to contending seriously in the NBA, you got to have two. And so with what we've seen from Luka Doncic and what we've seen from Kristaps Porzingis, I mean, I don't think it's a jump to say if Porzingis is healthy, then the Dallas Mavericks have those two. And they also get Tim Hardaway Jr. in this. So, and other guards. So, I mean, they've got some rotation guys in addition to having some stars. And so they've got to feel pretty good if Porzingis is healthy and can get on the court for them next season.
As they try to make it into the postseason this season, the Knicks, though, that 10-40 record, the worst in the NBA. And as you know, they've only won one playoff series since 2000, almost 20 years. A lot of maybes. Michael Wilbon, thanks for pointing that out. We shall see. Thank you. Kevin, over to you.
Sage.
Sage, remember that all-star center who made a trade request earlier in the week, Anthony Davis? The Lakers' calls are being picked up by the Pelicans. Woj reporting that executives have discussed the Davis trade request. According to Ramona Shelburne, the Lakers are leaving an impression that everyone except LeBron is available in talks as the trade deadline is a week away. And great to have Woj back with us. What are the two teams discussing right now with that deadline 7 days away?
Well, it's yet to be an ongoing negotiation, and I'm not sure the Lakers have even made a formal offer. But the teams talked on the phone. The Lakers certainly, as Ramona reported, left the impression that we're ready to discuss everyone but LeBron. And it'll be a process here. And, whether it's, a combination of players on the Lakers and draft picks, or, New Orleans might say, we would like you to go get that player from another team. We don't like the guys you have. See if you can get us a third team. And they're doing that all around the league right now. But certainly, it's still somewhat of a long shot that they'll have a deal in the next week because the ability to have a bigger pool to draw from on a deal in New Orleans comes after the trade deadline at the end of the season when the Boston Celtics can be involved.
And Davis's camp has made it known if he's not going to the Lakers before this deadline, it will be a one-year stop, a rental before the 2020 offseason. Right. How are the Celtics now approaching that demand?
The Celtics all along have had confidence that if they could trade for Anthony Davis later in the season, or excuse me, in the offseason, that it would certainly help them keep Kyrie Irving, and that they would convince Anthony Davis to want to go forward with Kyrie Irving and the infrastructure they have in Boston, that they were willing to take that risk. They would be able to pay more than the Lakers if he was on the Celtics. But right now, I think in Boston, they want to make sure that they have Kyrie Irving solidified. There's 2 max salary slots open in New York now. Obviously, Kyrie, it's from Northern Jersey. But Kyrie has given the Celtics no indication from the time that he announced he was going to stay. He's given the organization no indication that he's wavering on that, and that's how the Celtics are proceeding right now.
Yeah, the greatest sell in the NBA right now is hope. And we have a few teams with hope into the summer. We'll see how that plays out. Woj, thank you so much. Still to come here on SportsCenter's Week. Mavericks in a 7-player deal, according to Adrian Wojnarowski. The 23-year-old Porzingis met with management this morning to express his frustration with losing and the team's past dysfunction. He's been out for nearly a year recovering from an ACL injury, and he can become a restricted free agent this summer. Joining Porzingis in this trade to Dallas will be Courtney Lee, Tim Hardaway Jr., and Trey Burke. The Knicks will receive a player they passed on in that 2017 draft, Dennis Smith Jr., also Wesley Matthews and DeAndre Jordan. The deal may also include draft assets. Porzingis' career with the Knicks, well, remember how it started. It started this way.
With the 4th pick in the 2015 NBA Draft, the New York Knicks select Kristaps Porzingis from Liepaja, Latvia. He last played for Sevilla in Spain.
You heard the boos. We saw the crying. The Knicks faced a ton of criticism that night, but the unicorn quickly changed people's minds. He increased his scoring in each of his first 3 seasons, averaging close to 23 points per last season when he earned his first All-Star selection. But almost a year ago, he tore his ACL following a dunk on Giannis, and he's yet to play this season. The good news is that he recently worked out shooting threes, and he was dunking. That is great news for now Mavericks fans. And the man who broke the story, Woj, joining us with much more. This escalated quickly. This morning, he's not happy. He talks to Knicks management. This afternoon, he's traded. How did this come about?
Well, Porzingis asked for a trade earlier today, but there was already a deal in motion with Dallas. And for the Knicks, twofold. Listen, this relationship had been deteriorating. The Knicks knew that even before Porzingis came in today. They knew where it was headed, and they were looking to get off of Porzingis. And what they really wanted to do here was create cap space. They have now as much as $75 million available this summer, which would allow them to sign 2 max players. And this tells you that New York has real confidence that they have a real chance to get Kevin Durant from Golden State and then a second max star. But New York has certainly gone all in here. They'll get a pick or 2 from Dallas also in this team.
You got notable free agents here, as you mentioned, Kevin Durant, Kawhi Leonard, Kyrie, Klay Thompson, Kemba Walker, potentially Jimmy Butler here. And then there's the draft pick. They have 10 wins. They're in the lottery sweepstakes, and right now they have the best chances in that Zion sweepstakes. How does this trade affect them long-term this summer with that potential pick?
Well, a couple of the players they got in the trade, Wesley Matthews, DeAndre Jordan, it'll be interesting to see if they're open to doing buyouts with them. They may not want veterans like that, improving their win total. But certainly, for the Knicks, the focus was on clearing that space. They had a long way to go. And, certainly, listen, their dream scenario in New York, and it's been this for some time, is Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, but they've got a ways to go to unfasten Kyrie Irving from the Boston Celtics.
All right, now let's talk about the other side. Porzingis coming off the ACL injury, a restricted free agent. What does that mean for the Mavericks, pairing him up with Luka Doncic and the future here in Dallas?
Well, he's certainly, Porzingis fits in with a great tradition they've had of really having success with international players. Certainly the end of the Dirk Nowitzki era, and then Luka Doncic has come in and become their franchise player. He fits really, really well with them, and part of why they wanted to get Dennis Smith out was, he was a very ball-dominant guard, didn't fit as well with Doncic. But listen, he's going to continue to rehab his injury. The ACL, unlikely he's going to play this year, but as a restricted free agent, he can go out and get an offer sheet from somebody else. He can sign the qualifying offer, play for a set number next year, and then become unrestricted. But Dallas has a real opportunity to welcome him into that organization. He never had the relationships he wanted to have in New York. Phil Jackson to the next group. He wanted to find, in his mind, a more functional organization. And there's certainly been positive change in New York, but he's looking for a place where he can feel like he belongs, and he's got that opportunity in Dallas now.
Drafted in 2015, they went through 4 head coaches. They never won more than 32 games. Meanwhile, the Dallas perspective, the Mavericks, they're in Detroit. And just minutes ago, Rick Carlisle, the head coach of the Mavericks, he was asked about the trade.
I know you guys are going to ask about the trade. I can't really talk about it until the trade call is done. According to what I've heard, that could be sometime around 6 o'clock Eastern time. Could be a few minutes earlier, could be afterwards. Other than that, really can't comment on it. So if you got questions about tonight, I'd be happy to give it a shot.
Let's bring in Stephen A. Smith. Kristaps Porzingis was the face of the New York Knicks franchise, and they traded Porzingis away, Stephen A. Why?
Well, they traded him because, first of all, you have a superstar, a star rather, in Kristaps Porzingis, who made it very, very clear he did not want to be there with the New York Knicks. So let me get this straight. You've been hurt since last season. You don't play a game this season. And then you go into the organization and you tell them, I don't want to be with you anymore. I don't want to play with this franchise. Meanwhile, while the summer is approaching, where the Brooklyn Nets got enough cap space going after 2 players, the Lakers are obviously doing what they're doing. The Clippers are potentially going after 2 max players. What are you going to do if you're the New York Knicks? You're looking to make noise in free agency. You can't possibly pull that off if the star of your franchise doesn't want to be there, and he's telling everybody, don't come, because I'm not going to be here, because I don't want to be here, and you shouldn't either. That's what happened with Kristaps Porzingis. That's why the New York Knicks needed to make a move. And by making this move, I spoke to them. I was told they've got about $68 million in cap space, could go as high as 75, maybe a little bit higher. But no matter what way you slice it, they've got the opportunity to go after 2 max players. Last time I checked, Kevin Durant's going to be a free agent. Kyrie Irving is going to be a free agent. Regardless of what Kyrie Irving, his camp and him, in fairness to them, says he's happy in Boston. I'm hearing a different story. He wouldn't mind leaving. We know he wouldn't mind being in New York City. Things have gotten officially very, very interesting right now, and I'm loving it.
There is a lot there. First of all, apparently this is the new way in the NBA. You say, I don't want to be somewhere, and you get your wish granted. He's gone. I mean, was this the best thing for New York?
I think it was the best thing for New York because, again, he's not healthy and he's not playing, and you don't want to be there. If you talk about 3 strikes and you're out, get the hell up out of here. You don't want to be there. You ain't been playing. And by the way, you could potentially tell other people not to come to us while you're here. I can't knock the Knicks for making this move. I don't like the fact that a guy like that caliber, wants out of New York. I think it says something, but in the end, it says a lot to them by willing to make this move because guess what? You weren't gone but so far anyway. You didn't know whether you were going to be able to get one guy. But the opportunity to get 2, you're giving a free agent the opportunity to talk to another marquee free agent and say, excuse me, you want to go and roll together in the sport of basketball. You got 2 superstars. You are an automatic contender.
Woj mentioned the name Kevin Durant. You mentioned Kevin Durant. We don't know what he's going to do when he has his decision to make. Kyrie Irving, though, he has alluded to the fact that he probably wants to, is interested in re-signing with Boston. You say you hear otherwise.
That's
what?
Right. Well, I've been hearing that Kyrie Irving wouldn't mind being gone. When he says he wants to stay in Boston, if you'll have me, the operative words were, if you'll have me. Well, guess what? If you'll have me mean, are you willing to give me $190 million? I know Danny Ainge would be willing to do more than that for Anthony Davis, but is he willing to do it for a 6'1" point guard who is absolutely sensational in box office in my mind, but had questionable knee injuries in the past? Got a hip injury now. You're wondering about longevity with Kyrie Irving if you're Boston because of the crew that you have. But if you're the New York Knicks, I don't give a damn if he walked in front of you with crutches. If he says he can play next season, you got to take the chance because you've stunk for so long that you have to do something. As it pertains to Kyrie Irving, they're doing the right. Of course, you want to put yourself in position to get him. And in the case of Kevin Durant, I think if Golden State loses a championship, then that's a different story. But if they win the championship and Kevin Durant gets his 3rd ring, I don't think it's beyond the realm of comprehension that he might decide to leave. And if you're New York, why not? Especially when Brooklyn is right on Atlantic Avenue saying we can attract marquee players too. You can't let that happen if you're the Knicks.
Listen, we got 15 seconds left. Dallas now just outside the playoff picture. What does this do for them? They haven't been in the postseason in 2 years, haven't done much since they won it back in 2011.
Their future looks bright. They haven't been out of the first round since they won a championship. Their future looks bright with Doncic and, of course, Porzingis. But it doesn't spell championship, but they're moving in the right direction. I'm happy for Rick Carlisle.
Once again, apparently, hey, if you don't want to stay somewhere, just say I want out. It's amazing what is happening right now in the National Basketball Association. Stephen A., little fired up, huh, Kevin? We warned you.
Oh, yeah, he's ready to go. And we're just getting started here. Full coverage of the Knicks' surprising trade of Kristaps Porzingis. Michael Wilbon will tell us who won the deal, the Knicks or the Mavericks. Plus, Woj is back. New details tonight on the Lakers trade talks to acquire Anthony Davis from the Pelicans. Remember him? Stay tuned. This is SportsCenter. Our story of the night. In a blockbuster trade, the Knicks are sending Kristaps Porzingis to the Mavericks in a 7-player deal. Joining Porzingis will be Courtney Lee, Trey Burke, and Tim Hardaway Jr. going to Dallas. The Knicks will receive Dennis Smith Jr., Wes Matthews, and DeAndre Jordan. The deal may include draft assets. Ian Begley looks back at the Unicorns' brief run in the Big Apple.
Most Knicks fans booed Kristaps Porzingis on draft night in 2015. They weren't sure what to make of a skinny 7'3" forward from Latvia who didn't seem equipped to survive life in the NBA. Those boos quickly turned to cheers and eventually adulation. While the Knicks struggled through the final years of Carmelo Anthony's tenure, often engaged in embarrassing off-court issues, Porzingis always offered hope. There was a belief that Porzingis could lead New York to brighter days and help them build the kind of consistent contender not seen since Patrick Ewing roamed the Garden. That hope, of course, was extinguished on Thursday when the Knicks agreed to trade Porzingis to Dallas after a meeting in which the 23-year-old expressed frustration with the direction of the franchise. Now, New York turns to the summer of 2019 when they hope to land another star that gives the fans the kind of hope they once had for Porzingis.
Ian Bagley reporting the summer of 2019 and flexibility to land superstars, some of the big names, Kevin Durant, Kyrie, Jimmy Buckets, Klay Thompson. We're just getting started. You can go to Kemba, DeMarcus Cousins, Marc Gasol, potentially available. And it's great to have our NBA Catman, Bobby Marks, with us. So what are the realistic options when you look at this here? And how much money will the Knicks potentially have when it comes to flexibility and landing 2 stars?
Well, they just created a double max slot. And as you can see, $71 million in potential cap space. And that takes into account renouncing all your free agents, keeping the roster of Dennis Smith Jr., Kevin Knox. You have some flexibility here with Alonzo Trier and Damian Dotson. Those are non-guaranteed contracts. The 2 max slots could potentially get you a player like Kyrie Irving. When we slide Irving over, that number goes down to $39.5 million. So you've got 1 more max slot, potentially Kevin Durant, and that gets you your double max slot. And as you said, this trade created hope for the summer of 2019. There's no guarantee that New York is getting these 2 players, but now that gives them an opportunity to do so. Beforehand, they only had an opportunity for 1 player.
And you have the flexibility. All right, let's extend this a little bit for Knicks fans, give them a little bit more hope. 2 max players, and then can they still land Anthony Davis? Is that even a possibility?
It is, but they're going to have to wait a little bit. And if they get the #1 pick, Zion Williamson, the likely candidate, they can package Williamson along with Ntilikina, Dennis Smith, Kevin Knox, Alonzo Trier to New Orleans for Anthony Davis. And remember, they got 2 #1s back from Dallas. One of them is unprotected in the future here. So they would have to wait. The problem is that Davis might be off the board by the first week of July. And this is going to have to happen in August.
Okay, we'll see how this all plays out. Of course, we'll find out with the ping pong balls. They play a huge role back in May down the road in setting up the draft and the pieces that the Celtics could have to land Davis or potentially the Knicks in the Zion sweepstakes. Thank you so much, Bobby.
Here's what's happening on SportsCenter right now. It's semi-good news for LeBron James. After the Lakers listed him Wednesday as out for tonight's game against the Clippers, he has been upgraded, and it's now doubtful. LeBron still nursing that strained groin nearly 5 weeks after the initial injury. Assuming he does not play tonight, that would be his 8th